Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check out the link above to my Patreon page. So the last league that I uploaded for you guys had in the 4 flex slots a couple of relics and a couple of Thasas. However, there's just been so much Hogak Bridgevine around, and it's just so consistently able to go off on turn 2, turn 3, certainly by turn 4, that I felt like I needed to pack a little bit more main deck hate. So in this league that I'm going to be showing you guys here, I've got the full playset of relics in the main deck. Yeah, the idea is, it seems with this really dominant, extremely popular and powerful graveyard strategy right now, all over the place, it's a good idea. Also because a lot of other popular decks get hit by Relic of Progenitus right now. Blue-white control gets slowed down a little bit. You got any of the black-green decks that are trying to use Tarmogoyfs and Scavenging Oozes, etc. You guys know what Relic does. So I've got the full playset in the main deck here, and then because I had a couple of those in the sideboard, I needed to shuffle things around over here. At this point, I've got the full playset of Deprives and Revokers because those guys have just been doing a really excellent job, and they're extremely versatile cards. Deprive can counter anything, and Phyrexian Revoker just names stuff and turns it off. So until this guy starts failing me, I'm going to be packing at least 3, if not 4 of them in the sideboard. I bumped the Dismembers up 1 to get 3 of each. And I believe I had 2 Grafdigger's cages in the board, and now I've just got 1 supplementing the 4 relics. All right, so apart from that, nothing else has changed in the deck. I am going to be adding Minamo back into the deck because I have been seeing a bunch of choke in the format lately with black-green decks getting pretty popular again. So going to 10 islands and 10 non-basics, including 6 sources that can make blue that are not islands. I feel like, it's got a nice balanced approach to the potential land-based hate in the format between Blood Moon and Choke. So yeah, with the deck tech out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into round 1. All right, here for round 1, it looks like the opponent won the die roll. And as for the opening hands, this looks like a keep to me. Opponent kept 7, and we kept 7. Clearly, we've got a bit of card draw, some interaction with Trickster, a third creature in Mutavault, and some stopping power against any kind of broken stuff. All right, Urza's Power Plant. These Forces of Negations will probably come in handy. So Relic is nice because it gives us an extra thing to do on turn 1. Let's go ahead and play our island and get Relic out on the board. Okay, very nice. Opponent plays an Urza's Mine, and then a Talisman of Dominance, which tells us that this is not normal mono green Tron, but instead mono blue Tron. Which I was very happy to see because whereas playing against green Tron, we're pretty even. We're actually heavily favored against mono blue Tron. Our strategy just lines up really well between having access to a bunch of counter spells and naturally being able to just island walk through their islands. It can be really hard for them to stop us. So Spreading Seas is pretty nice since it looks like they're about to establish Tron. So rather than play out a creature, which was really tempting to run out a Silvergill Adept and start applying pressure, if an opponent has 2 different Tron lands on the board, you generally want to go ahead and play Spreading Seas out. Master of Waves hopefully will come in handy later. Now it's shaping up that next turn we can probably play one of these 2 drops and then cycle Relic. Relic is actually kind of live in this matchup, but only in like the late game when they get Academy Ruins and they try to return powerful artifacts from their graveyard to their hand, whether they're returning an Expedition map to make sure that they get Tron online. But more often, you're going to be seeing them recurring like a Walking Ballista, which can just shut the game down really fast. Or even worse than that is if they get Mindslaver with enough mana, they can just keep returning Mindslaver, keep taking your turns for the rest of the game, and just win very easily that way. Alright, so they're still 2 turns away from Tron right now, but they spend 4 mana to play Karn, Scion of Urza. Now this is not the new Karn. That's Karn, the Great Creator. But it is still a Planeswalker, it is still a 4-drop, so we are going to force that for sure. It seemed to me that Trickster was, you know, of the least potential use in this matchup, so I pitched that to this Force of Negation. Now, I could have pitched the other Force, but as I was mentioning before, we're against any Tron opponent, we're going to be able to get lots of value out of these counterspells, so I don't really want to pitch one to pay for the other. I'm going to go ahead and just exile whatever I can. And then, let's see. I drew a Lord, but going to play out the Silvergill, play out my land. Drew a Ben for the turn, or rather, I drew a Ben off of Silvergill, which is a better option than just cracking the Relic. So now we've got a nice clock established all of a sudden. Opponent chooses to repeal Benthic Biomancer. An interesting choice. I guess they wanted to leave up 2 mana and could only bounce something like a 1-drop. And I guess Ben was going to start attacking them. They didn't really care about the Relic. So maybe that was the decision-making process. Opponent follows up with Chalice on 1. Okay, so it's a bit of a combo. They bounced Benthic Biomancer, which means we can't play it anymore. Also means we can't play any AEther Vials, which means it's just going to be impossible to get Benthic Biomancer onto the battlefield anymore. But it's just fine with me because it just pitches to Force of Negation. Kind of highlighting one of the cool things about Force of Negation is that if we ever get dead cards in any particular matchup, they're still okay because they pitch to Force of Negation. Opponent plays a Field of Ruin, which will probably eventually get our Mutavault. But it's time to start attacking. That island was pretty timely because now I think we just slam this Master of Waves, get a bunch of attackers. Swing in with Silvergill Adept. What has the opponent got for us this turn? We still got them 2 lands away from Tron, so they're just playing, you know, like 5 drops at most right now. Thirst for Knowledge. Happy to let that resolve. Okay, they pitch an Expedition map. And let's see, with 2 more mana here, they play a Walking Ballista for 1, which is a nice answer to Master of Waves. Go ahead and trim their graveyard with the Relic. And they ping the Master of Waves. Not much I could do about that. They had a nice 1-for-1 answer there. And I believe that was the end of their turn. So let's go ahead to my turn. Sometimes these replays take a moment for whatever reason, whether the opponent was sort of sitting there for a while or I don't know. All right, it's on their end step now. Let's go ahead to my untap step, please. All right, there we go. All right. Apologies for the slow replay here, guys. It's kind of jamming up. All right, so drew a Merfolk Trickster for the turn. It's just nice to draw bodies here, but I think the plan is just to play out a Master of the Pearl Trident and activate Mutavault and attack. The opponent's pretty much tapped out. They can't do much with that island. So, swinging for 6, opponent goes down to 12, and hopefully we're just going to run smoother at this point with the replay. Okay, Mir, I guess, Battlesphere. This is a card that I've seen before. My friend plays it in his cube, but I haven't seen it in Mono Blue Tron. And that same friend actually plays Mono Blue Tron. For those of you guys who don't know, this is a 4/7. It's a 7-drop, and you make 4 Mir tokens when it enters the battlefield. When this thing attacks, you can tap any number of Mir that you control. When you tap those things, it gives this thing plus X, equal to the number of Mir that you tapped, but it also just deals X damage to the opponent's face or to a planeswalker. So it's kind of scary. The thing is, though, that we've got Island Walking, so it's really not that scary. It's a 7-drop that we can't counter with Force of Negation. I thought this was probably kind of like a janky fringe choice, but I checked after this match, and my opponent has something like 15 5-0s with Mono Blue Tron, so the guy definitely knows what he's doing. The guy or girl may very well be a woman. So I untapped, and with Island Walk here, you know, I think we just run the same attack back, right? Get Mutavault activated, still have access to Island Walk, swing in for 6, and now we've got a 1-turn clock on the board. We've got Trickster up to try to tap down the Mirror Battlesphere. Okay, and we've also got Force of Negation up. So here's Trickster. Looks like the opponent has some counter magic. They have a remand. So I want this Trickster to resolve, both because it's an extra creature and because it's going to stop the attack from the Battlesphere this turn. So I think it's a good opportunity to go ahead and cast Force of Negation. I pitched Benthic Biomancer. Remember, I can't cast that guy. And so the opponent let that resolve, but then it looked like they had another remand. So unfortunately, Trickster getting countered comes back to my hand, and the Mirror Battlesphere is going to get in an attack here. So the opponent thought a little bit about how many Mirror they wanted to tap. Ultimately, they chose 2, which did 2 damage to my face. Now this thing is a 6/7, not very threatening as I'm sitting at 14 life. Still have access to lethal Island Walk. No more counters in hand. Opponent does have another Tron land, gets them only 1 land away from establishing Tron. But for my turn, let's see. Go ahead and trim that remand with the Relic of Progenitus. Play Silvergill Adept. Now, I could have gone for the lethal attack there with Island Walk. The problem is that the opponent has a Field of Ruin that could have just destroyed the Mutavault, and so it actually wouldn't have been a lethal attack. I would have only gotten in for 3. So instead, just choosing to develop my board. All right, so this Benthic Biomancer is dead in my hand. So basically here, get in with the Silvergill Adept. Cycle the Relic of Progenitus, hoping to draw like a counterspell. Unfortunately, it didn't hit one. Now, instead of giving the opponent a chance to get to their draw step and potentially rip another counterspell, it doesn't really matter here. I've got a blocker for the Battlesphere, and they could only do 4 to my face with the Mirror. I'm going to actually pause on their upkeep with Merfolk Trickster. Try to get around any counterspells that they might have. So end step, opponent Field of Ruins the Mutavault. And yeah, upkeep, we're going to flash in the Trickster, tap down the Battlesphere, and see what the opponent's got on their draw step. So trying to click through here, I don't think they really had any attacks, and so they just passed through. And do they have any action on their second main? Nope, just passed through to their end step. So for my turn, I untapped. I've got Overkill with 3 Island Walk attackers. If the Lord got killed, then they'd have some pretty nice blocks, being able to trade with the Silvergill Adepts. All right, drew another Lord, though. That was kind of what either a Lord or a counterspell would have been sweet in this position. These decks sometimes have Spatial Contortion, but most often that card is in the sideboard. So I guess Repeal could be alive here if they bounced the Lord. So really not sure why the replay is kind of locking up here, but I'm going to cycle. That was funny, actually. I cycled Waterlogged Grove and drew into a Force of Negation, which seemed fine to me. I didn't even have to play the Lord out. I can just go in with the 3 Island Walkers, and if the opponent has anything, I could just counter it with Force of Negation. So pretty routine, easy game 1 against Mono Blue Tron. It is a favored matchup for us, as I mentioned earlier. Let's go ahead and see how game 2 went. All right, I'm back with game 2. The opponent's going to be on the play again. Let's check out what I did with sideboarding here. Looks like I took out 3 Master of Waves. Sometimes leaving in a single one can be a good choice. Just as the game goes longer, if you top deck one and you've got a couple Spreading Seas out, he can bring a pretty big board all at once. Looks like I left the Echoing Truths out as well as the Dismembers. This is something that is potentially debatable. They do run dangerous things like Platinum Angel, says that they can't lose the game. We do have 4 Merfolk Tricksters, though, which we can Aether Vial in around counter magic to turn the Platinum Angel off. So we do have answers to that kind of stuff. I took out all 4 relics, and since I'm on the draw, I took out an island. So in total, that's 5 cards over here and 3 cards over here. So that's 8 out. I brought in the 4 Deprives and 4 Phyrexian Revokers. They've got a ton of targets for Phyrexian Revoker between Oblivion Stone and numerous Planeswalkers and Walking Ballista. All their big threats basically have activated abilities. So Phyrexian Revoker quite strong in the matchup. And there's one in the opening hand. This is pretty solid, so I'm definitely keeping this, and the opponent kept as well. All right, no turn 1 play for them. No turn 1 for me either. With those relics out, we don't have as many 1-drops in the deck. Aether Vial would have been nice, but we do have 2 lands to work with here, so let's see what the opponent did on their turn 2. All right, so they play a power plant, and it looks like they just passed through again. So, going to my turn. I drew a Waterlogged Grove, which is nice because we have too much gas in hand and not enough lands. I think I'm just going to pass through here and try to flash in Trickster on their end step. I don't really want to give them an opportunity to make use of this mana if they've got like a Remand in hand. I'd rather play on their turn. Okay, so opponent's turn, they play Academy Ruins and an Expedition map, which is going to push them closer to Tron mana. And on their end step, I will flash in the Trickster, as I mentioned. All right, Aether Vial is pretty awesome there. As these games go many turns, even if Aether Vial is sort of late to the game on turn 3, it's still going to be great value because we get to leave up more mana for counterspells and still deploy creatures. So let's see. Play out that Aether Vial, see if they had a response like Remand, and then afterwards, we can potentially follow up with a 2-drop. Looks like they didn't have anything, so... Okay, so Spatial Contortion is what they were holding up. That's fine. We're fine with them spending their removal on a Merfolk Trickster. With them tapped out, it's definitely time to go for Silvergill Adept to keep drawing cards. And there's a 4th land, which, it's not too bad. We could potentially cycle that away with Ben, or just play it. Opponent's going to cycle Expedition map so that they have a land drop for the turn. It was the Urza's Mine, and then they pass. So Aether Vial is going to go up to 1 on my turn. Hopefully get this replay running smoother. Tick Aether Vial up. See, what's happening is normally I just click through all the actions, but many of the actions are taking many clicks to get through, which makes it a little bit strange to time it correctly. Difficult to time it correctly. So get him with Silvergill, finally deal our first points of damage on turn 4. And then I think I'll just pass through here. With Aether Vial ticking up and with 2 counterspells in hand, there's no reason to play into their counter magic. And by leaving mana up, I get to pay full price for Force of Negation, and I don't have to actually pitch any blue spells. So opponent, again, spending their removal on my less important creatures. That's 2 Spatial Contortions they won't be able to use on a Phyrexian Revoker if they get, like an Ugin down on the board. It looks like they're not hitting their land drops. Go ahead and cycle Waterlogged Grove on their end step. We don't really need 4 lands, and drew into a Lord, which is pretty solid. So take Aether Vial up, and it looks like the replay is running a little smoother now. With all these Lords in hand, it seems like a good opportunity to just establish a clock. The opponent looks like they're countering this. Now, I know I mentioned not wanting to play into their counter magic, but we have so much gas that it's kind of okay going 1 for 1 with their counter spells. So I let that resolve. They're going to scry 2, and I don't really have mana to do anything else, so pass it over to their turn 6. Still no 5th land drop. And on their end step, I'll go ahead and Vial in a Lord. No Spatial Contortion yet for that one. I'm going to keep this Vial on too because Phyrexian Revoker is kind of an amazing card with AEther Vial. It almost works as a counter spell. Imagine the opponent hits Tron and slams Ugin. We can just Vial in Revoker to turn Ugin off before he gets a single activation. If they tap out like 10 mana to play Walking Ballista, Vial in Revoker. Can't use their Walking Ballista. So, drew a 4th land. I'm going to go ahead and just hit for 2 with the Master of the Pearl Trident. Opponent goes from 18 down to 16, and play that 4th land and follow the same strategy as before, leaving up mana to cast the Force of Negation. Eventually, this guy's going to hit his land drops. So chose to put Expedition Map on the top of his library. It means he's probably got a bunch of gas in his hand, but can't really play it because he doesn't have the mana for it. Which means that it's possible I should spend a Force of Negation on an Expedition Map, but really, I'm not that concerned. As I mentioned, I've got Revoker for like Walking Ballista. If he plays any big Planeswalkers, I've got negates for that. So there's that Expedition Map, and just going to go ahead and crack it right now, which of course makes sense because they can play a land drop. Okay, they're going to pay 3 for Treasure Mage. Not particularly frightening. They grabbed a Worm Coil, but we've got... and go ahead and open up their revealed cards here. So yeah, they grabbed a Worm Coil, but we're going to crack in for 6 with Island Walk next turn, and again, we still have 2 counterspells in the Revoker up, so in an extremely strong position here. All right, trying to click through to the end step here. Okay, Vial in the Lord, very nice. We're going to keep this Vial on 2, as I mentioned. And I think it might be time to turn the screw here. So I think I actually played Master of Waves. We've got Counter Magic back up. We've got Revoker. They have no mana up to counter anything, so the opponent couldn't do anything about the attack, so they go from 16 down to 10. And then, as I mentioned, I believe I cast Master of Waves and got 5 tokens. So really putting the pressure on the opponent. They've got to have something great here. They went for Thirst for Knowledge. And it looks like they just scooped. So thought they had plenty of good stuff to do with 8 cards in hand. Or rather, I guess before that Thirst, they had something like 6 or 7 cards in hand. But they couldn't get there. As I mentioned, this guy has 15 5-0 trophies in the last year with Mono Blue Tron, so they're definitely a very experienced pilot. Looks like they got a little bit stuck on lands, but between our new card in Force of Negation and our new sideboard choice with Phyrexian Revoker and the old strategy of Island Walk against decks with islands, we tend to do pretty well. So pretty straightforward 2-0 in round 1 against Mono Blue Tron. So thanks for watching, guys. Please leave your comments down below. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and please check out my Patreon page. I'd really appreciate it. And tune in for the next video where I'll be back with round 2 of this Modern League. I'll see you guys there. Bye.